It's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law.
Can I get up with
Welcome to The Law Show. I'm Zach Spencer. Today we're talking about personal injury law. Scott Stanley is my guest, along with Kevin Gourlay from Murphy Battista in downtown Vancouver. And today, gentlemen, we're going to talk about our legal system isn't necessarily a justice system. So we kind of think of them as lay people that they're the same thing, but you're here to tell me that it's not really the case. So at the 30,000 foot level, what is the difference between what we perceive to be the legal system versus the justice system?
Well, I hate to break it to you, but our legal system sometimes it masquerades as a justice system. And by that I mean there's gaps when our legal system, it just isn't fair. If you talk to regular people and they were aware of what was happening or they were aware of what our laws were, it would conflict directly with almost everyone's value system.
Can you give me an example?
Well, an obvious example is in the criminal context where we might believe that somebody is guilty, but the system is designed such that there's a benefit of the reasonable. It has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and if you can't do that, the person is acquitted. And sometimes people don't see that as justice because they believe a guilty person is walking free.
Now we want to distinguish between the American system and the Canadian system. The one that comes to the top of my mind as soon as you're saying the words is O.J. Simpson, right? Where most people believe that O.J. was the killer, but they couldn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Because if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit.
And I think that our justice system is designed to try to ensure everybody a fair process, but can't ensure that there's going to be a fair, right result.
Well, I think in the Bosma case in Ontario, where the fellow was taken on a joyride to sell his pickup truck and never came back, justice was done there. I think most people would agree with that, where both of these guys went to jail for first-degree murder.
Yeah, Canadian law is nowhere near as exciting as American law. I mean, I'm sure everyone's probably, if they haven't seen, they should see that 5-part series that 30 for 30 did on O.J. Simpson, Made in America.
Yeah, I hear it's fantastic. Have you seen it?
I have. I've watched it. Graphically violent.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I would not let little children watch it. But it's interesting. The first trial was a travesty. He was acquitted of something that I think everyone agrees that he probably did. And then, of course, he was sued civilly and awarded $33 million. And then
the family was awarded
$33 million, which they collected almost none of it. And then he was picked up on in Las Vegas because he did an armed robbery. And I think that was kind of a trumped up charge. And having looked at the entirety of the documentary, I think he probably skated on the first charge when he was accused of killing his wife. But the other, he got a makeup call in Las Vegas because he got 33 years
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio getting the Academy Award for The Revenant.
Exactly.
When he should have won it for The Wolf of Wall Street. And I watched The Revenant and I'm like, this is the Academy Award winning? No, he actually is getting a makeup for last year when he should have won it for The Wolf of Wall Street. So you're saying that in the United States, in the OJ case, that's kind of what happened?
Yeah, I mean, in the Canadian context, I mean, our law primarily comes from the British common law. And, Zach, you're a car guy, and you would know that most British vehicles need to be maintained and tweaked regularly. I mean, having owned a Land Rover myself.
Yeah, they saw you coming, I guess.
They saw me coming. And the same thing here. Our view is that as lawyers that dispense the law and deal with it and talk to people and get the reaction to it, there are areas where we say the common law needs to be reviewed, it needs to be maintained and overhauled so that we can have a better match between what people's expectations are and the justice they feel their legal system is dispensing.
So how hard is it to get laws rewritten? Do you need to challenge it and send it up to the Supreme Court in order for it to be thrown down and say, rewrite this law? Or are laws being changed all the time and we're just not aware of it?
Well, there's two aspects to that. The law is always evolving. Each time a new judgment comes out, that impacts how the law is interpreted. And we have a system where precedent it guides how we do things going forward. Where judicial interpretation of law is not working, you need legislative change, meaning the provincial legislature has to write new laws to tell the judges how to respond.
Be interpreted, right?
Yeah. And that can be a very difficult and timely and time-consuming process, and oftentimes it just doesn't happen.
So in your line of work in personal injury, how have you seen this discrepancy play out? So you have, what you think the value system of society is, and something that's happened, then people just don't feel like they've been treated fairly.
I would say the biggest one is when someone is catastrophically injured, meaning they have a severe brain injury, they're incapacitated, they need 24-hour care, they can't care for themselves, or someone that's got a spinal cord injury that's where they're on a ventilator. And if you ask people how much money should they get for their pain and suffering, not for their wage loss or the amount of care they need, the expenses they're going to incur, how much should they get for essentially being forced to trade their good health for the state they're in now? Most people would be surprised to hear that it's about $350,000. That's the maximum they're going to get.
Which won't even get you a one-bedroom apartment in Vancouver.
That's right. And then someone like Ivan Henry, who was jailed for a period of time and released, is awarded $7.5 million. That doesn't make sense to most people. Now,
so someone's being wrongly accused, spends time in jail, sometimes decades. So what you're saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's shouldn't be worth as much as somebody who's been critically injured?
I think the even greater distinction would be in the defamation context, where if somebody besmirches your good name, there's no particular cap on how much the court can award you in damages for being defamed. That seems hard to reconcile that with the fact that somebody who's catastrophically injured and will be a quadriplegic for life, their damages for pain and suffering are capped at about $350,000.
So let me get this right. You have an accident and you go through the system and you're working with the insurer, in British Columbia, more than likely ICBC, and you have somebody that's going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of their life and is going to need constant care. You're going to get paid from the insurer for the care that they're going to need. All those sorts of things, but for the pain and suffering portion, it's capped to $350,000.
Right. There's a trilogy of cases that capped it at $100,000 in $1979, and through inflation, it's now about $350,000. And what Kevin was saying earlier, that if you hurt someone's feelings by defaming them, there's no limit on the amount of money that you can be awarded for those hurt feelings or that hurt reputation. Whereas if you completely destroy someone's physical and cognitive ability to function, that's capped at $350,000.
So because that precedent has been set back in the 1970s, can't a new judge set a new precedent?
No, because that was set by the Supreme Court of Canada, so it binds the lower court. So the only way that could be changed would be if
someone challenged it up to the Supreme Court, right?
The Supreme Court decided.
And why has that not happened? Because that doesn't seem like a fair amount in today's dollars.
People have tried to, but they haven't succeeded yet.
So again, it's just one of these gaps that we think if people were aware of it, and hopefully they will be after everybody in Canada listens to the show.
Absolutely. It's a must listen.
They will write to their MPs and say, look, this is just not fair. And it applies right across Canada.
Now, though, I would suggest that the worst one is you're in a car accident and someone kills your child. You get nothing unless you have an insurance policy, and most people don't have young children. You start paying insurance policies when you're working and have your own kids for the grown-ups, but not for children. So your child is killed in a car accident, you get nothing.
The damages for somebody who's fatally injured in an accident are governed by what's called the Family Compensation Act, and it gives very limited compensation. It's really only your actual financial losses, and because they're courts see kids for the most part as a cost rather than a benefit, if you lose a child, typically there's no damages that can be recovered at all.
And that's a shock to people.
Well, our Family Compensation Act is one of the few laws in the world. It discriminates against people who are old, young, disabled, poor, and believe it or not, people of Western European descent. I think it's the only law in the world that discriminates against people of Western European descent.
Can you give me an example of that?
Well, as Kevin, so if a child is killed and they are from a family of Western European descent, you typically can't establish that child is going to stick around and provide care to the parents in their elder years, right?
Because you're saying that if it's a South Asian or Asian family, that the tradition is set that they are going to look after their. So you're European, is what you're saying, and our way of dealing things is move out, start your own life.
18, you're gone.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. They come back apparently.
It's one of these rare situations where people of Western European descent are actually discriminated against, and yet it's actually really tough to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a concept of filial piety. They say that the South Asian cultures they provide for their elderly more than we do. But those in our line of work, that's one of the hardest conversations to have with people that come in the door and ask questions. They've had a loss where a loved one has died, and having to explain to them how the Family Compensation Act operates, that can be a very difficult conversation to have.
Who pays into that family compensation? Like, how do they collect funds?
Well,
it's not an insurer.
It's not a fund of money. If someone if they've killed somebody wrongfully, they have to pay. So if I did something like that, my home insurance, if they would cover that on my behalf. So
that's the liability insurance you have with your home coverage,
that's right.
Right.
The law doesn't recognize anything for loss of companionship, sorrow, grief, or anything like that.
Is that a difference between the Canadian and American system?
Very much so. In most American jurisdictions, there are very extensive, heavy damages awarded to families who lose loved ones.
Yeah, I can imagine that most people listening are surprised by that, and they're a bit shocked that if something happens and you lose your child, that's nothing. There's no recourse.
Well, I mean, the purpose of tort law is to create a deterrent from, it's people are compensated or assisted, but the outcome is that you want to deter people from doing the things that cause these things. I mean, that's what reduces car accidents. People are required to pay, their insurance rates go up. There's absolutely no deterrent for killing someone civilly if the person is poor, young, old, or disabled.
Interesting stuff. We're going to continue the conversation with personal injury lawyers Scott Stanley and Kevin Gourlay from Murphy-Battista next on The Law Show here on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.